My favorite Linux. I'm going to go with Gen 2. It's where I started. And honestly, my background came from the Windows side. So some of you might know a lot more about Linux than I do. Maybe you don't. I don't know. We'll find out. I ended up always just using Linux. Did it as a hobby. When I was younger, I remember I put Gen 2 on a laptop that wouldn't run very much of anything else, and used it for studies in school for a whole year, rather than Windows because I don't want to pay for it. And it just stuck with me ever since. I toyed around with it, and finally I went pro when I joined Red Hat. That's what I do. So yeah, Red Hat, I cover all the Red Hat products, Linux and everything there, but generally most of the focus is around kind of our core stuff. So I'm here to talk tonight about SELinux. It's something that when I encountered most of the time, I just hit disable on. I didn't like it. It was annoying. Yeah, so just a couple of reasons. I mean, you know, a lot of installers or the installation will just say, just disable it because it won't work right. Is it videotaping me or?
If you're on like that inside.
You might have to tape me in because I wander.
No, it's totally fine.
Okay. My application will run. Who knows? You know, we also block. I spent hours troubleshooting it, only to realize I just needed to turn on SELinux, which is kind of a classic one, right? I mean, I spent hours doing it when I'm just like, screw this, just disable it, and then wow, everything just works. So obviously, SELinux was a problem, right? But that's not true. That's not true. But in my mind, it is. Like, it really is. This is what I think of now. The reason being is, yeah, I don't know if you guys are South Park fans, but you're gonna have a bad time. It's there for a reason, and this is what kind of prompted me to think a little bit deeper about it. I'm like, well, it seems kind of important. I mean, I have to disable it, and then maybe I should try to figure this out. So really my moment of clarity came, Red Hat made me take a bunch of classes because I had to have these certs so I could say I'm smart. And one of them went through SELinux. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm like, where did that come from? I'm gonna get into it in a bit. It's the tools I use to troubleshoot, which to me are almost magical. Like they like that, why doesn't everybody know about this? And that thought actually is the reason why I'm speaking tonight, because I want to share the word on it. So this is from the Red Hat page. It says when it's disabled, you know, the policy is not loaded at all, it's not enforced, ABC messages aren't logged, all benefits are lost. Red Hat strongly recommends to use permissive mode instead of permanently disabling SELinux. So the question is, right, what is permissive mode? You should never disable SELinux. There's one exception, and I've only had one customer ever meet this criteria, which is if your performance transactions and messaging need to be so real time that the minuscule amount of performance hit that SELinux takes, because it does add attributes, would affect things, then maybe you can, and you satisfy that with other isolation, like security isolation, disconnected, isolated networks. Otherwise, you should never disable it. What you should do is turn on permissive mode at a bare minimum. So what permissive mode is it's logging everything, but it doesn't enforce it. So you get the messages. So you should be able to run an installer. You should be able to do whatever it was you were doing just by flipping back on permissive. The difference between disabled and permissive is there's the file system. Basically, it's not going to use the SELinux labels across the file system. You use them. So then you have to relabel it. So if you've got a pretty big file system, you just disabled it, you've done some stuff, and then you want to re-enable it, you're going to want boot time on it, the relabels on the file system. So don't disable it. Just turn on permissive. And the beauty of this, too, is you can see what the hell's going on in the covers. So SELinux, it's all about types and processes. It doesn't prevent a process from doing what it should. What I mean by that is, if there's something inherently wrong with the process that's running, it's not like an exploit or something that's a 0-day, it's not going to fix that. What it basically does is isolate. So whereas things might run as root, right? If you have an Apache server, it's only going to run in the context of Apache. So it's quarantined off. And that process can't then go, for example, serve up other files from other points in the file system, which could be a problem if you're serving up SSH private keys and things like that. The way this works generally is that, let's see, what did I put here? Oh, okay. In this case, when we search for the Apache side, this is a longhand form we're trying to figure out what goes on. Give me 1 second, because I have some notes here. Yeah, there it is. I've done this once before, I promise. With the answer. This usually always does the opposite.
This is it, what is it?
I know, right? I'm wondering where the...
I think you got to. I think it's mirroring your display. You got to turn that on.
You got it. That's absolutely what's going on.
Help desk pays off.
Thank you. With the save, I like it.
You didn't know how to do that? I don't know.
No, I hit the thing. It's just not.
You hit the thing.
Hit the thing.
Accurately enough.
All right.
Hit the Apple logo upper left-hand corner. It's there. That's where I always did it. System preferences.
Nope, that's for the second. Sorry. Okay, no, you need to click.
Arrangement. Arrangement is right there. Arrangement. Yep.
Arrangement.
And then uncheck at the bottom there.
Now double click.
Thank you.
Alt right click. Step on. Now you gotta drag the bar, drag the little white bar there, over to the big monitor, which is your local display, so that they're in the right order.
I've done this once. Yay! Okay. Thank you.
Do the hokey pokey.
All right. So without SELinux, we use what's called discretionary access control. So these are just file permissions or access control lists. But the problem with that is users can set world-readable permissions on sensitive files, and processes can change the security properties too. The other problem is that processes can inherit users' rights. So if you're running something like Firefox and there's an exploit, it can run whatever the user can access, and that exploit can then go in. So basically, it's just opening things up to do business they have no business doing. SELinux prevents that. In this case, when we have Apache secured like that, it's only going to run content with this label. So if something is, and in temp, without SELinux, basically it could write anywhere, right, on the file system. So some things that can stop that Apache struts vulnerability that Equifax had, it could have actually stopped that. It would have. Just with SELinux enabled, it would have prevented that. Containers trying to access privileged items, yes, but with an exception. Unknown exploits, no, because it's not mine, actually. The other thing with containers is, although containers with SELinux will prevent the container from, let's say, contaminating your OS and the file system, it's not going to prevent the container from going outside and coming back into another container. So if there's an exploit, for example, that wants to go into the port, an open port, it doesn't prevent that. It's not magic, right? It's just using isolation for that. So hopefully this at least appeals to the fact that SELinux is a good thing to enable. For anybody who's Windows background, I liken this to the UAC, where people just wanted to disable that, or even the firewall. Just disable the firewall and it'll work. What does it do anyway, right? So this SE troubleshoot is really good with RHEL or CentOS. this is how I learned this. This tool, for me, is the one that I thought was magic. I usually just use yum install SE troubleshoot, and I can share these slides. This is the long form one that definitely installs everything. And what it does, oops, I didn't even say what it did. My slides are out of order, ignore that. Those are the tools, but once, so you want to get the tools on. But to enable permissive, which this slide should have been way back, you really just need to change SELinux equals permissive. So you want to check if it's there. And forcing is when it's actually doing something. Do not do disable. Also, don't mess with the SELinux type. It should be targeted. I'm not going to get into the other ones. There's like role-based app. It can get actually super secure, even more secure. But I don't know how you're going to do that. And this is just a command that just runs from the command line in one line. All right. So once we install those tools and we enable SELinux, the first thing we want to actually look is in the messages. Oh, one big thing, reboot. You have to reboot after if you're disabled and you go to permissive or forcing, you have to reboot. The reason being two things. One, the file system has to get all of the labels on it. And secondly, the logs need to start up. So without that, you're not going to get any log, which is very important for this next step to figure out how we tame SELinux. In this case, this is an example up top of it working without any issue. The bottom line is actually one where it finds an issue, which is not all that helpful. When I first saw this, is usually where I'd go and I'd be like, okay, that's great, what do I do? And so, we'll get back to SE status. This just checks where it's on. SE alert -A, var log, audit, log. I run this a lot. So what it will do is it will look through the logs and output a human readable way to resolve the issue with the best guess. And it will do confidence. So ideally you'll get 100% confidence, which isn't unusual. In this case, this one's kind of all over the place. So it says 60% confident. This is SMD. And basically what it's saying is just run this and the file label should be set. 60% sure it'll work. The other one here is to actually set the file context. So when we do SE manage have context, AAT, I don't know why the command's so long, I'll be honest. This is going to be the domain is here, and then what it's doing is there. And then either the file or I'll show you the command because it's kind of weird. The way it was described to me when you're doing a full file system is it looks like a pirate with a hook. You'll have to see it to believe it. And then this basically enforces those labels once we put it on there. This one's kind of bad. This basically is a boolean that'll make everything read-only. So what you're saying here is basically this process is read-only to everything in your file system. That's what that does. It's still better to leave SELinux on and do that than disable it. And this one's even worse, right? This one says, make everything rewritable. Let it do whatever it wants. So you can have one-offs this way. This is a very common one that I get, where it'll automatically create the module and you'll just load it in there. So it customizes it for you. You run that, it does all the work. That's the way I felt when I started doing SELinux. It's like I'm feeling pretty serious about this stuff. Okay, I wanted to just show you some examples with, with Apache, one item that gets hung up are ports. So with Apache, you're going to get 80 and 443. If you wanted to run it on 81, and you have SELinux enforcing, it's not going to work. So you have to let that port be enabled so that the process can use it. So in this case, we're just having 81 enabled. That's all you need to run. SE manage port-L lists all the ports in their context. By the way, for the file system, if you're not aware, ls-la capital Z, the Z will bring in all those contexts for you, so you'll be able to see that. Oh, okay, let's say you install Apache and it doesn't work, right? So let's just throw it in permissive and then work through it. You actually don't have to. You can just make it permissive. So in this case, it's a postfix. You can just make postfix permissive only. So you can substitute that with Apache, whatever you want, and only have that process be permissive while everything else is enforcing. So this is a good way if you want to go, once you get to the enforcing part, that you can go troubleshoot individual processes or programs that you might have without killing everything else. And then D disables that one. So that basically removes it and puts it back to enforcing. For SMB here, let's see. Oh, okay. So when we do the PSEZ, we're basically checking the process context, right, for SELinux. So what we'll get back in this case is we'll see the process here, and then we're also going to see SMBD_T, which is the type, and the type defines the domain for the processes and type of file. So SMBD processes are running the SMBD_T domain. That means it can read write any files labeled share-T. It cannot access HTTPD syscontent_T, which makes sense, right? There is a way, I think I get to it, where we can have directories be read by different processes at the same time. So, okay, for some directory, if I have my stuff in var stuff, the old school way to do that was chcoa. I'm not even sure, changed context, I guess. But I've been taught, I'm not entirely sure why, to use SEmanage. So although it's a long command, the SEmanage fcontext AT, and then, so var stuff, and if you notice this guy right over here, this is the one I was trying to say looks like a pirate with a hook. I don't know, that's what the instructor told me. If you squint, maybe, but although it doesn't, I don't think it looks that way. If you're trying to memorize that, that's a good way to memorize that. Like squint, nose, eye patch, hook. Maybe, I don't know. Whatever helps you remember it. But that end is the common one. I'm not going to get into details why, because I'm not entirely sure. But that is the one that you need to use at the end for a directory to encompass everything in the directory, the subdirectories, and the files underneath. And then you always want to run restoreCon bar. The V is just on purpose. You really want to know any feedback from it. And then that one can just be bar stop. And you should get some feedback if it changed. You won't if it's already set. These are the looser permissions. So when we set export all RO or W, that sets it everywhere. That means that process can use read only or read write on any file or directory in the entire house. If we use public content RWT, this will make it read write for any process. So if we have a directory that we're going to share off different processes for just a public one, that's what we want to label it as. So this is a very generic one. A lot of times this might also be used for web content too, where you have a process dumping in files and the Apache server needs to share it out too. And there is one, so public_content T and then public_content_RWT. So since it operates off least access, if you want to share home directories, you're going to have to enable anonymous write. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. The anonymous write is to allow it to write to the public content. Sorry, that's what that is. So you'd have to then put it in your context for whatever process you have with you on the home directories need to be set because they're a special case. So if you have SME shares with that, you do need to enable it because it locks it down. And if you're on a system and you want to use remote home directories through SME, you have to enable that too. And that's really it. These would come up if you run that SELinux-A or log audit on it, which I run a lot, which is right there. Once you install SE Troubleshoot, the SELinux-A var log audit log, I would highly suggest, like, to get some practice, go ahead and install the SE Troubleshoot and do some stuff and run it and see what you come back with. To me, this was one of the greatest learning tools I could have. But the point is, once I was able to do this and go through and put in everything, and then I'd run this and there wouldn't be any feedback, I turn on enforcing and I know what I'm doing. So there are a couple of strategies. Oh, you can also get this. I've actually not used it, but if you do SELinux-P, apparently there's a GUI. So if you have a desktop version, use that, because apparently that'll work really well. And I just left the commands here in terms of labeling the file system. Once you do put that in though, and you switch it to enforcing, things should work. If you find they don't, you can switch it back to permissive, run the SE alert, grab that feedback, and make your changes. I have not come across anything that I haven't really been able to get through with the SE alert, which surprised me. Because every time I was told about SELinux, it was just disable it or enable it, or the application install and take care of it. And this was never the case for me. I would always disable it because stuff wouldn't work, and then it actually would work. That's all I got.
Any questions?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
How would you compare SELinux to AppArmor?
I wouldn't. I don't use AppArmor. I'm sorry. But they're very similar. The same. AppArmor is basically the SELinux equivalent in the Ubuntu space. So, yeah. I mean, they should be very similar. I just used to disable it until I went through learning this, and due to the nature of my job, I generally don't play with Ubuntu too much. I don't, but I mean, it's something I certainly would explore if I used it a lot more. But it should be, the concept is the same. So my understanding is AppArmor is the same. They do this exact same thing.
So SELinux is now basically a part of all Red Hat enterprise.
Everything we do is SE. Yeah, we don't have anything that comes out without SELinux working on it. So basically, if you read the docs and follow them and use Red Hat, it'll just work. So I actually got, I got started on, oh, cool. This one. So kind of a side article. Rockstore is CentOS based. It uses ButterFS. Holy applause, right? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but tons of promise and fanfare, and like it didn't go anywhere. It is a really cool file system, just don't ever use RAID 5 on it, because you lose all your crap. So I actually have an HP server with about 13 drives on it that runs Rockstore. Basically, I have Plex, I do torrent, all that stuff, runs its containers on top. And I noticed they didn't use SELinux. I'm like, wait a second. So I actually put together the article forum here and just going through, and I can share this link too, because this actually honestly better explains than I raced through it. Going through how to do it. So in this case, a lot of them are related to the file shares. I don't know why it's not in there. But I found a lot of developers, they'll put stuff out and they'll just disable it. And they don't know. They really don't know. So when I went through, because they were like, oh, it'll be too hard. So I went through every single feature, messed with it, and was like, here, it's done. So, I've been pushing them to incorporate those changes natively when they push it out. And then again, at least push it out permissive, not disable, right? So, but I know from a Red Hat side, everything we have comes out enforcing. So, even the container stuff.
Could you give us like a concrete real-world example of an exploit that SELinux stops?
I mean, the Apache struts vulnerability was a great one.
Can you tell me more about that?
So that one was the one that affected Equifax, that really led to a big data breach. And it was an older vulnerability that kind of passed through. So I'm not trying to say, I'm not throwing any company on the bus or anything, but basically what happened is they're using upstream, nobody patched it, and an older vulnerability was exploited by somebody and pulled out. So in this case, the Apache and struts process were able to use privileged commands on secure items that they shouldn't have been. The reason SELinux would have stopped that is it would have locked it into the confines of the Apache computer. So the struts vulnerability would only affect what's in Apache. Now, it could do some damage there if you have the sensitive stuff there, but generally people don't have the web servers able to access the sensitive data, or if they do, they're very careful about the security with it. The problem is, though, if you run anything that's privileged, right, anything, and you don't have SELinux enabled, and somebody gets a hold of that process or something does, it can do whatever process has access to it.
So you're saying they're running a process basically as root?
Yeah, I think it did pretty much. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff does run in, when I say privileged, it's generally root or root-like. Yeah. So like if you think about containers, when you run a container as privileged, running as root, it has access to everything in the process.
I run a mobile VPN software. When I start up, I got to type in my root password. Is this basically what you're talking about?
Yeah, now the VPN would make sense because you're accessing privileged networking.
So if somebody compromised my VPN software
Without SELinux, yeah. If they had access to that process then could take it over.
So here's another fun one. I installed Steam, the video game program, but I installed it as root and was running it as root for months.
Because it worked, right?
Because it worked, right? Yeah, I mean, it worked. And then Steam announced that they had a vulnerability with remote code execution that they had gone unpatched for 15 years. Oops.
I mean,
I fixed it.
yeah. I'd say like there's times when you might want to run loose, but when you do that, make sure nothing in that loose system is something you don't care if you get everyone in the world reads it. Yeah, I mean they're like a honeypot, for example. I mean, you're going to run that loose, like you're sucking people in, but.
There's a notebook exploit in Linux, very early, to Linux, where basically if you fork a process twice and kill the initial process, the second process would become a zombie process, and the child process would be adopted by the zero process, so it would become adopted by root. Right? At that point in time, we would inherit everything from the root access, and we would be people used to do that. Demonstrations on how easy you could get hold of a root account, even if someone gave you a read-only login on the machine. Right? So, SELinux in that scenario would force some labels associated with the account. Even if you do the double fork, you will not get access.
Yeah, and with, I mean, that one vulnerability was examples to make it stop. It's not going to stop everything. I mean, it's not, you don't want to rely on SELinux to be like, oh, I can just run root all over the place. You know? I mean, I made that joke too. I run as root because I got SELinux back in there. But, you know, I mean, to some extent maybe, but not really. You still have to use protection, so to speak.
Well, if it takes over the root user, then it can change the SELinux permissions still on its own.
That's true. Even if you do that.
Well, SELinux is on.
Even if you do that attribute where you set it, even the root can't use it.
Well, then how do you set that?
You can set it and unset it with root, but you can't access the file as root. It's an old one. I forget what it is. It's like this secret. It reminded me of something where, like, in a JAXLUG, when I discovered the escape keys, and I could put in enough to erase somebody's name and rewrite it and have them say whatever I wanted to.
The only thing
you know, Well, the key to that is only using it like once every 3 months. You mess with people's eyes. It's like, I didn't say that. Like, dude, it's right here.
There might be like a boot option in the kernel line for up that might say it's only enforcing on boot of this, so they'd have to potentially change that and reboot the machine to get it to not do that.
No, I mean, you can turn, oh, for SELinux?
Yeah.
I mean, but you could disable it as root there. Like, you can go from enable to disable. That stops it. You just can't go from disable to enable.
I'm saying if you were to try to prevent root from live enabling and disabling it, there may be a kernel option to.
Yeah, but you'd have to unload that so that it could access it. Or you'd have to install it somehow.
Well, it would be part of the kernel. So they'd have to, if they were trying to do that, they'd have to change the kernel line to start the machine.
Yeah, I mean, the other way is to check it periodically. You gotta learn once in a while.
Or not run things through.
I had a question over here.
That was my question.
Because you're waiting on.
So in your SE manage command, there's a -A and a -T.
Yes.
What are those for?
Oh, good question. I might have to Google that. But I do know one is for,
Bad type.
yeah, type, and then A is,
Is add.
Yeah,
add, and then type, the type, and then the file. Yeah. -R is recursive, so you don't need it if you're just doing a file. But generally, I have it, like dash capital RV, got another V in there for file, maybe 3.
verbose is always nice.
Very verbose. I was told you, like, I mean, I don't understand why there is a non-verbose for that command. Because if there's any command that you, why would you not want feedback from that?
If you're putting it in a script or something, you don't want to put the feedback in the handlers.
Yeah. But if you tell it to restore the context and they're already there, you get no feedback. So just be aware of that. It will show you when it changed. Yep.
You mentioned earlier that if you set it permissive mode, one good reason to do that is the logging.
Yes.
What do you not get in the logging? What is it actually, or let me rephrase that, what is it giving you that is actually useful and valuable?
Instead of disabled?
Yeah.
I mean, it's giving you violations. So if you think about this, it's basically telling you when a process is doing something it shouldn't be doing. I mean, to me, that's really valuable information. Like,
so,
wouldn't you want to know if Apache is running on the wrong port? You'd be like, wait, I didn't set that.
So there's maybe one option then to run it permissive for a little bit, analyze your logs, and then go through and just have a quick session of fixing all the things you need to fix. Is that, would you say that's a good way of doing it, bad way?
Very good way. That's, yeah, I mean, I probably didn't explain it well. The way you want to do that, turn permissive on as soon as possible. And then go through what, basically the process, make sure everything runs that you want to run. Go through those logs, analyze with SELinux, fix them, turn on unforeseen. Then check your stuff, make sure it works. If it works, you're done, great, If you hit something where something should work and it didn't, just go check the logs, see if it's something simple. And if it's not, then look at turning permissive only for that process. At worst, turn permissive on for everything. Permissive won't stop anything, it's just logging.
Yeah, normally your audit will blow up whenever, if you've got enforcing mode and you're trying to do something, you'll see the audit on.
Yeah, it
spews on it.
The good thing is it's not something where it's not going to catch it very quickly. The audits catch things pretty quick. So the process runs, it's going to pick it up if it's trying to do something that's not. I haven't had too many misses, I mean, at worst I go back a second time. That's it.
Yeah, another good thing of keeping permissive, like you said about the run, is for troubleshooting after the fact. If you got something that was changed and should not have been changed, sometimes going to the logs. You can get at least like, boom.
I kind of wish they called permissive disabled and they call disabled like idiot mode or something. You know, just like something or like, I don't give a crap about security, I just want to run fast mode. And by run fast, I mean like, just a fraction faster.
It's called vulnerable mode.
What?
It's called vulnerable mode. Vulnerable mode. Asking for it mode.
With no protection mode, yeah, something really. Was there another question?
So should I be running this on my home computer? Is this more for servers and
Everywhere.
everywhere?
You absolutely should run it on your own computer because one of the vectors, I mean, obviously, is through the web browser. You know, so if you are using it as a end user, that is a huge vector, and the fact that, you know, I mean, if you think about it, we're all like, oh yeah, I'll be okay, and then there's this one thing you want to run, and you give it Steam, or let's say, I don't know, a video thing, or whatever. I mean, who knows?
You need that plug-in.
That might have gone.
Yeah, plugins.
But yeah, they're plug-in, and you're like, okay, well yeah, because I know what it does, right? Or like a VPN or something, or I want to do web sharing. You know? But you just enabled it to run as that. You know, you're trusting whoever wrote that.
Or if you listen to a lot of the security news that's going on, even if you trust the company that wrote the software, they might be employing a package inside of that software that is malicious or got replaced or something.
Right.
So even if you know, yeah, this is from a fairly reputable company, I've been using them for years. One of the children, one of the packages that they're employing,
Right. Or I mean,
something it's not supposed to.
you could look, and I mean, this is kind of maybe a little off topic, but if you look at Spectre Meltdown, right? I mean, this is something that existed for a very long time that nobody really knew, but was always there, and somebody must have known. You know, I mean, the possibility could be somebody had been doing that exploit for years and keeping it really quiet, like doing that like once every 3 left things and nobody ever figured out what's going on. I mean, those things can happen, right? It's just, they're unknowns. I mean, and that one affected every channel.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow. So are you saying I can take SELinux, basically just have it target one program like the web browser and then not put everything else?
You could, but that kind of be reverse engineering it. Like you would have, since it's a least privilege, it's going to secure everything by default. You'd have to go basically unsecure everything by default, make it permissive.
Okay, so if I try and set it up and mess it up, and I remember that, do that without.
Yeah, so when you enable, what you want to do is enable permissive. This will not prevent anything from running. It won't block it. It'll log it, but it won't block it, right? If for some reason it does, disable it, let some people know, because that's not the way it's supposed to work. There's probably something else going on. It will, just to prep though, when you enable permissive and you reboot, there's going to be a delay because it's going to relabel that file system. It's adding all those file context on there. And if you've got, you know, Linux is a flat file system, there are a lot of files, it's going to take a while. So if there's a huge share of files, that could take a while. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't need to, it generally does it hierarchical, so it's not like adding MP3 data. At least not like this. Somebody's talking about MySpace the other day. Remember that girl? She was like in her 20s. She's in MySpace. Remember at the, never mind. I'm reminiscing. So I can share, this one I can share with you too. I can put it on the mailing list or whatever. And I can obviously some of my pretty crappy slides. I'm not known for my fancy slides. I have almost gotten kicked out of somewhere because of my slides. At one conference, I'd spoken 3 years in a row, and it was pretty well attended. And they were like, "Yeah, we don't need to check it." I'm like, "Are you sure you don't want to check my slide deck?" No. You sure? Yeah. Because usually they always told me to pull out some stuff. It's too easy.
Not for the lug.
I got one that it was obscene and one that it was very funny. It's like, okay, please everybody. It was a little bit more racist. Anyway. I think that's on the Bear Girls drinking this Yes, all right, so let me go back. Was there any? I skipped through. So SE status will pull up kind of the long form. It's get SE. I hate this tab because I don't even read the commands anymore. I just hit tab to fill in the rest. So get, set, SE, something.
Get enforce.
Get enforce, set enforce, right? So set enforce, you do set enforce permissive. It's like 1, 0 permissive.
I think it's get enforce, set enforce. Get enforce gives you the level, set enforce gives you, you can boolean, and I think it gives you true, false, 0, or 1.
Now, the difference between those and the SELinux config file is that this is permanent. If you just do set enforce and you reboot, you're right back where you were, because it's always going to go based off of this.
You can only go between enforcing and permissive. You can't go to disable.
You
cannot go to disable with set enforce. Set enforce allows you to switch between enforcing.
That's why it's 1, 0. Okay.
Yeah.
I never have.
Yeah, if you're having like a really weird issue with the system, and you're like, I wonder if it's SELinux, you set enforce 0. If it's magically working, set enforce 1, and then go look at the SELinux logs.
Yeah. There was one thing that was kind of interesting. I was told not to use this. The reason being is you can really screw something up. I didn't dig deeper, that's just what I was told. So if you see a reference to this is the older way of doing it. Even though this is longer, I mean, you can research this and say it's BS to me. I'd love to know why. It was beaten into me, use this, not that. Because this you can really mess up. I think if you mistype something, like it doesn't care and it will just, you can make stuff inaccessible. This one at least has some security. And then always remember restore file. That's an easy one to forget. Yeah, I did it, didn't work.
Linux and C have a lot of similarities. It gives you all the tools and lets you blow your foot off with them.
Yes, yeah.
Go for it.
But that magic one, oops. The magic command was SELinux-A, Verilog. So if you get a CentOS box, is it Samba or Samba?
I've always heard of Samba.
Samba?
Samba.
You know why I wouldn't say that the whole time because I didn't know which one's right? Samba?
It's like Mambo.
SMB.
Samba. Like the drums? No. No drums have Samba. Alright, yeah. So the Samba stuff. The Samba stuff is a good one because it really gets, there's always security stuff there. So going through some of this, a good way to do it is like if you install CentOS, go ahead and install Samba, make some share called like make it off a root directory, and then put some files in there, and then try to share them, and then start doing this. But if you want like kind of a homework thing to go through to understand how it works, then run that SELinux. It should find it. It should tell you what to set with a little knowledge. Again, these are very loose ones, so when it says just do this, don't, right? Look for the one that's more with the context. That should show it. But if you don't see any of that, you can also use this post, which I'll send a link to. I'll put it. I'll put that in there, but if you do, honestly, if you do a Google search for Rockstore, SELinux, it's like the first one. It's CentOS based, so just forget the Rockstore stuff, but it'll go through the Samba stuff for you. It uses a GUI to add lines to smb.com, so that's one of the things it needs access to right away. but I do NFS and softball here. So. Cool. If you want to reach out to me, feel free. You want to follow me on Twitter, you want to hit me on LinkedIn, I think it's Magically X on LinkedIn, but Tom Gamull. I'm out of Atlanta, so if you see that, but I'm down here a lot. So, and thank you very much for letting me speak. We appreciate it.